This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
Welcome back in. McElroy Cubelic in the morning, 7:19 right here on Jocks 94.5. He joins us each and every week thanks to our friends at Craneworks. It's not on Tuesday this week. It's actually on Monday. You can see him on the SEC Network. You've got SEC Nation coming up this weekend. You can hear him live right here on Jocks, 2 to 6 p.m. It's Paul Finebaum.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
Paul Finebaum on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lift it, buy it, rent it, the big dog's got it. Now, Paul Finebaum.
Paul, always great to have you in on a Monday morning. Last weekend of practice for all these SEC teams, heading into game week. What's your biggest question? What's your biggest point of concern? Number one thing you're looking to find out here in week one for any SEC football team?
Cole, it is Friday night at Waco. I want to know what's going on with Auburn because forget all the nonsensical conversation off the field. What is Jackson Arnold going to look like on the field? Is this team really as good as some people are whispering from a talent standpoint? How do they mesh together? They have a good staff down there. They have the best roster under Hugh Freeze. And what do they do in a moment of truth? And I think this really is because of the very obvious that they don't have a lot of games to throw away. And this is a game that I think perceptively looks like a very narrow win. But it's up against a team that in the Big 12 is considered to be a riser, a very good coach, a team that has come back from the dead. And a win energizes a possibly really good season, and a loss does just the opposite.
Looking at this upcoming week, though, for Auburn in general, in the event in which they go and lose a hard-fought battle to a good team, does anyone care? Because I think we all know Baylor's legit, but I don't know how many people out there nationally understand that Baylor's legit. So the reason why I find this game so problematic is the fact that the national perception of Baylor is probably inaccurate, and they should have a higher opinion across the board of what the Bears can possibly do. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is. I think one of the Auburn's biggest issues is just trying to get back on the national scene, Greg. And I'm not telling you guys anything because you guys are part of that scene, but on all the shows outside of the SEC footprint, Auburn doesn't exist anymore. I've been on some of these shows, and you go too, Greg, where I've suggested certain stories at Auburn, and they're met like, Auburn? What is that? What is that? And we know how big Auburn has been, and it wasn't all that long ago. But when you have a losing streak like the school has had, you had the kind of disheartening seasons. You move out of the main lane, and in college football is so much bigger than it was 5 years ago, and all the energy. It's about a handful of schools. Alabama is part of that. Auburn is not, at least not right now.
So ultimately, what do you expect, start to end, for Hugh Freeze this season? Will Auburn fans come away excited, happy? Will it be disappointment again on the Plains?
I feel good, and it's easy to be an optimist on a gorgeous late summer morning in Alabama when the record is 0-0. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I think for all the criticism that he has received, and much of it is self-inflicted. At the core, he's a good football coach. He's got everything he needs. And I don't know with a guy with the kind of record that he has and some of the off-the-field miscues that he has suffered, could he have any more support from John Cohn and this administration? So, I mean, I'm not predicting a playoff. I think 8-4 would be considered a reasonable record. I think that is doable. I think the home schedule is favorable in the sense of, the two biggest games of the year are at home, and Auburn has the ability to perhaps shock one of those two, meaning Georgia or Alabama.
Looking at Alabama this week, Paul, I think it's also a bit of a dangerous game. I do think there's a little bit of ghost chasing that's to be expected? New offensive coordinator, new quarterback. Will they look more like Mike Norvell, or would they look more like Gus Malzahn? Those two identities philosophically are not necessarily in line. So what is Kane Wommack preparing for? Things like that. However, I still think if Bama just takes care of business, doesn't make mistakes, they'll be fine in this game. What's your viewpoint of this matchup for the Tide?
I'm really interested in what you just alluded to, and Greg, you can only listen to the rumor mill so long, but there's something about Gus Malzahn or Mike Norvell I don't get. I think I understand why he was hired, because he's a very smart, innovative at times, predictable at others, offensive coordinator. But I just do not see these guys on the same page for very long, and that I think is perhaps the issue, or could be the issue for Florida State. I wouldn't be surprised if the game starts off slow for Alabama. I don't think Alabama needs to do anything spectacular other than just get out of there. Whatever the game looks like, it will be overanalyzed. A big win or a field goal at the end. But I do feel very confident Alabama is going to win, and this game will be forgotten quickly as long as that is the outcome.
Flip that conversation to LSU. How do they need it to look? How do they need it to go? Even if they were to come out with an L in this game, is there something they need to prove? Something we need to walk away saying about Brian Kelly's team?
This is a different situation. I mean, this can be a 31-30 game that Clemson wins with 0-0-0 on the clock, and it's still not going to make any difference to LSU fans because they've been there too many times. There's no such thing as a must-win in the opening game when you have a 12-team playoff and you have a couple, especially with LSU's schedule, you probably have 3 losses that will still get you into the CFP. But I don't need to give this audience an education on LSU fans. Everybody knows 1 or 2 or 3 or 100, and they will overreact if this is a loss.
What do you think, Paul, about the long-term prospects of Brian Kelly if they lose this game? Because I feel like nobody gives him any credit for anything. I look back at year 1, they get to the SEC championship game. Everyone just routinely forgets that matchup and how they beat Bama that year, all the other good stuff that they accomplished. So help me out. Like, where are they at in the event in which they lose this game and Rally ended up having a pretty good year?
Well, I think if they have a good year and get to the playoffs, I don't think this game will matter a whole lot. I think it was 2016-17, one of those years. Remember when Alabama played Florida State in the opener? It was 1 versus 3, and it ended up hurting Alabama because Florida State was so bad. That's not the case here, but I think we overemphasize opening games with all the questions that everybody gets asked. But I think if he loses this game, he then is going to deal with 2 or 3 weeks of a lot of noise. He absolutely must beat Florida then in a couple of weeks and deal with the schedule. And the schedule, for those who don't swim in these waters every day, is pretty treacherous, especially with road games at Ole Miss and at LSU and at Alabama, of course. And that's where he has to deal with the pressure. But one thing about Brian Kelly, he's dealt with it. He's not shrugging his shoulders. But pressure at LSU is not a whole lot different than pressure at Notre Dame, which he had to deal with, especially after a losing season up there where a lot of people thought he should have been fired.
You look at the rest of the league, Paul. Is there somebody else that needs to prove something? Is there somebody else, whether it's Missouri in their quarterback situation, whether it's a team in one side of the football, a coach just need to get off to a good start? Somebody we haven't mentioned, it's this Oklahoma team maybe making some sort of a stance that they can be a real player with all the buzz that they've begun to get the last 2 months. Who else needs to prove something this weekend in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mark Stoops probably. This is a program that has been known to lose games it shouldn't be losing, and considering Ole Miss is around the corner, he needs to look good because I mean we all know he's got a $35 million buyout, which almost everyone agrees can't be paid. But just try losing an opener and then lose to Ole Miss the next week and suddenly have another lost season before you're even to the first day of autumn, and that pressure will overwhelm you. I think another coach that's playing a tricky game is Josh Heupel. Tennessee's had another offseason like Auburn, where with Nico leaving, a lot of people wondering. This was a playoff team last December. We're going to have to remind people of that a lot of times, but Syracuse is coming off a big year. I feel pretty comfortable with Aguilar at Tennessee, but I also think that's a game that you better keep your eyes on.
Paul, we always appreciate the time. Always great catching up with you. Enjoy week 1, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks, Cole. See you guys.
There we go. Paul Finebaum, thanks to our friends at Craneworks joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Some questions that he needs answered for week 1. I'll ask you, the listeners. We don't have another guest until 8:15. What are your questions for week 1? What are the things you need answered this weekend, be it Alabama, Auburn, any other SEC team, any other team nationally that you want to get out there and you feel like, I need to see this from this person? We'll get to our weekends when we come back, because I had an 8-year-old ask me 2 very interesting questions at Auburn's practice yesterday, and I want to hear the group's answers for those questions, because it's not something I feel like we've talked about in the manner in which it was asked to me. First, I'll tell you about Train. You guys know it might be cool. By the way, have you seen the weather for this weekend?
Yeah, amazing.
It's
not mad about it.
We're going to be spoiled this weekend because you know that the heater is going to flip right back on after that. We're going to melt the next 3 weeks of college football. However, it is going to be mild this week, but the heat's going to come back. Don't let it affect your home and family. Keep them comfortable with an affordable Train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years. They're the official cooling partner here at Jocks. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a Train. 2 questions from my 8-year-old when we come back for the group next right here on Jocks.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, and 3-Man Front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.